Hi there, my name is Luke Fern, and I have the privilege of introducing Santiago.
Samuel.
Yeah. Sorry, Samuel and Henrique, for talking about I use Debian Bus.
By the way.
By the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. You have probably seen it already, but there's this meme of the Arch user who likes to say, I use Arch, by the way, that started years ago. And eventually this meme transformed into more things. So people nowadays like to say, this is written in Rust, by the way, or this is written in Golang, by the way. So the rule is that for anything that you find it cool or new, you add by the way to the end, right? So it implies this new generation of tools, let's say, that has a different set of defaults. It's a bit more modern than usually written in newer languages as well. And you can use those tools in other systems. So you can use Debian, or you can use Debian by the way, which is Debian with these nice little tools. So this is going to be some sort of silly little talk where I'm going to present you that these tools exist and hopefully do a little demo at the end. So some of these tools are, for example, FZF, tmux. Everybody knows tmux, but tmux gets really powerful when you start using with these other things. Zoxide, and there's more. There will be more. My name is Samuel Henrique. I have been a Debian developer since 2018. I work mostly on the security tools packaging team on Debian. I maintain further packages outside of that. I also do some mentorship work. And as my job, I'm a system development engineer for Amazon Linux, where I do security. And everything that I do on Debian, that I have done on Debian so far, is on my personal time as a volunteer. I do not get paid to work on Debian. So we're going to start with some CD recommendations. So you're probably going to be aware of all these already, and then I'm going to do a short presentation on these tools listed there. We start with the CD recommendations. So some things that it took me years to realize I could or I should do these things. The first one is that it's almost always a good idea to remap your caps lock to do something else. Once you realize you're not using caps lock, you have, and it's in a very, it's in one of the best positions in the keyboard. You should definitely consider remapping that to either Control or ESC, and GNOME makes it very easy to do that. It's just an option there. You have other options, other alternatives for your caps lock key in there as well. Choose a nice programming font. So obvious. The Ds nowadays, they used to come with nice fonts already, but you might want to choose one. And then you're specifically looking for monospace fonts where it's clear to distinguish the difference between the 0 and an O and a 1 and an L and a capital Y. And it's impressive how there are new fonts showing up today that still struggle with this, right? You have one job, you are creating a font and you make a font where it's unreadable. You cannot differentiate between those two. Disable the animations. And then we start looking at some dotfiles configurations. This is for input RC, so it changes the way readline behaves. I've tried to make a case for making this the default on Debian, and I failed. It might happen eventually, but these two options, they give you a better experience when you're using auto-completion on the terminal. The first one is going to ignore casing, so there's also a meme of the Linux user where it's trying to CD into downloads, and they press tab and there's nothing there. And I think it should not be case sensitive by default. So this option will do that. It's case sensitive. The second option will make the terminal show you all of the alternatives at the press of your first tab. So if you want to CD into downloads, you're going to do CD down, and then you press tab. Is gonna, CDDO, let's say. You're going to press tab, it's going to show you the two options already in the first press of tab. So downloads or documents, let's say. Let's say you press only the first characters, only D, and you press tab. This option will also autocomplete the maximum amount of characters it can until it finds an ambiguity, and then it shows you the options. So this makes things a bit smoother on the terminal. These other things that I like to do is I have this for loop in my bash rc, which looks into a bash rc.d folder, so I can better organize my bash rc file. So I put everything in there, and my main bash rc imports that. I like to add timestamp to bash history. I think that's very helpful. So if you have that option, once you run history, you see a timestamp of when the command was run. Obviously, if you have a server, you have a different solution for that, but this is what I do on my personal machines. And then the last one, I really like it. Whenever I do cd into a folder, it runs ls. So cd something, I already have ls there. Because lots of people cd ls, cd ls. And the way this is carefully written such that it will not break scripts. So this is only effective on interactive shells. Another thing that I think everybody should consider is a nice PS1 solution. So this is Powerline. If you install Powerline, there are multiple alternatives, and you should all search for them and choose the one you like the most. But I tend to use Powerline, and what it does is that it makes my PS1 in terminal to look like this. And the important thing that you want to have there is if you are inside the Git repository, you want to see the branch that you're on. You want to see if there was a current state of the Git repo. So you see there's a 1 in green. It means that one change that was staged for committing. The yellow one is one change that was not staged for committing. And the flag with the number 1 in blue is one change that is stashed. So I try to mess up with the repository to get as many icons as possible here. Usually you don't see that many things. And then you see the yellow one close to the end here at the right. That means there's one job in the background running for this terminal session. And cgint means that the previous process, so the previous line I did a Ctrl-C, I see a cgint. If I had any other command running, it would show me the exit code of that command if non-zero. So if it's non-zero, you see something. We see what happened there. So then we get into the rewriting Golang Rust, by the way. And people love to do that nowadays. I feel like this new generation of developers are getting into this, and then they have this opportunity of rewriting the tools that we have in the shell with a fresh mind. So they get to choose better defaults. And they also using these fancy languages that people like to work with. But then you have two options, right? So you can just rewrite the same thing with the exact same behavior, which some projects are doing. I believe utils is the project that's doing that for core utils for Rust, by the way. And alternatively, you start from scratch and you define better defaults. And that's the type of tools I'm going to focus on. So the first one is ripgrep. It is a substitution for grep. It is it's blazingly fast, how they say in Rust land and Golang land. And there's some benchmarks there. Rsync claims is at least 2 times faster in most cases. You're going to see some benchmarks where it's 10 times faster. Personally, I don't really care about how fast it is. It's very nice that it's fast, but I care about the defaults. If I need to search something, let's say I want to search recursively, ignore hidden files, ignore binary files, ignore files from git ignore, I just do rg and what I want to search, because that's the default behavior already. I don't need to think about what do I need to pass to grep in order to get, this is how I use most of the times. If you need to get a different behavior, the parameters that they provide tend to be more meaningful as well, because they could start from scratch and handpick the parameters they want to support. So rg is in our repository, ripgrep. Next one is fd. It's equivalent, but for find. It's also faster than GNU find. I don't really care about that. I want a default in which I don't need to think about the parameters I need to use. So if I need to search recursively, case insensitive, ignoring hidden files, ignore files from ignore, fd find, whatever I want. I don't need to pass wildcards or something. It is already the default behavior. If I need to do a case-sensitive search, all that I have to do is to search for a string that contains an uppercase character. The tool knows, the tool assumes, right? If you're asking for something that has an uppercase, maybe you want case-sensitive search, and it will do that. And it's also available in the repositories, and is written in Rust, by the way. And then we have FZF, which is a wonderful tool. It is popping up everywhere now. It is a fuzzy finder in which you give it a list of things you want to find things from, and it gives you this interactive screen where you just type in whatever you want, and then you hit enter on the selection, and it will do whatever you want as well. So you tell FZF, once I select something, do X, and then it will do that. So it's very simple, but it becomes very powerful because you can use that for Control R, so that's recursive search and bash history, and that's very simple. You install the package, add that to your bash RC, hit Command R, and then you're going to get the FZF search. And you can use read line shortcuts with that, so Command N, Command P to go over up and down the results lists. tmux sessionizer, I'm sorry, I'm going over quickly here because I want to be able to actually show you this working. tmux sessionizer is something that I was only recently aware of. I used to use a lot of VS Code for programming, and one of the main features I was missing is that I want to be able to have open projects that keep state. So I close a window, and then I want to come back to it. I want the same files open, everything the same way it was before, and I want to have multiple of that. And I want it to be smart enough that it knows a certain folder is a project. And that's pretty much what tmux sessionizer does. I've put a link to the one I have. This varies a lot because a lot of people are implementing themselves the way they want. It's very simple, straightforward. So consider writing your own or searching for better alternatives. That's just the one I use. It was based on the Primagens, which is a YouTuber. So effectively, it's a gate between the terminal and your project. So then I was able to finally make the switch from VS Code into NeoVim, because that's what I use with tmux. Then you have Zoxide, which is another one of these tools written in Golang Rust. By the way, it is in the repository, and it is a substitution for the cd command. It keeps a score, let's say, of the folders you access most of the time, and then when you want to cd back into it, you don't need to give it a full path. You just pass it a string, and it checks whatever entry has the highest score, and it puts you in there. And this can become powerful if you use it together with tmux sessionizer, and I'm going to show you that. Oh, sorry. I forgot to explain exactly what tmux sessionizer does. So tmux sessionizer, it's an interactive prompt that shows up using FZF, listing the projects you have, and then you choose something. When I choose the certain package I maintain, the tmux sessionizer is going to create a tmux session under the name of that project, and I'm going to be inside the project. Now, if I detach from that session and I call the sessionizer again and I say, give me package X, it's not going to create a brand new session. It's going to put me in the one that already exists. So it lets you manage things in that way, and then it uses FZF to provide you the list of things that you want. So yeah, you can use Zoxide with that because you can integrate Zoxide into the list of projects that is used in tmux sessionizer, such that the projects you access the most are listed on top. So if you have two projects with the same name, let's say of similar names, the one that you access the most is going to be on top, because Zoxide provides us this scoring of what you access the most. Then we have some time here. I would like to just show you how these things work. So this is my shell. If I hit Command R here, this is FZF doing the, oh yeah, sorry, let me zoom in a bit more, of course. Is this mostly fine? Yeah. So let me do it again. So Command R, this is my bash history. I just removed it all because I wanted to reset it. But if I search for add, there you go, git add, git commit, whatever. I don't have much things here because I just reset it. I can do Command N to go up and down, and whatever I choose here is gets added into my shell. I still need to hit enter to execute, but if you want, you can automatically execute that. This is Powerline again, so if I want to use tmux sessionizer, I have a shortcut, which is, oh yeah, let me show you the bash history. So you have a timestamp there as well. That was one of the changes. The auto-completion, so DO tab, it already suggests some things, lowercase, uppercase, downloads. Okay, there you go. It fixed the casing as well of the folder. Now, for the sessionizer, I can hit Command F, and these are all of my projects. You get to define that. When you look at the code of the tmux sessionizer, it's very, very simple. You just do a find to get some sort of list of folders. You feed that into FZF, and you tell FZF, whenever something is chosen, run this command. And this command is going to be the tmux magic, where either you create a new session or you pick up the one that's currently running. So if I want to check my curl packaging, I can head up to this one, I hit enter, boom, I'm inside tmux now. And let's say, let's get inside the Debian folder, and then I'm going to detach with command BD. I am detached, and now I'm going to come back to curl. I am back into the same session I was before. If I'm inside tmux already, I can still trigger that with command BF. Again, tmux sessionizer run again inside tmux, but then that also works. And I chose mtr. If I list my current sessions here, you can see that we have curl and mtr. There's also one from my website. I was playing around with it just recently. So the session is still hanging, right? As you can see, I can close the terminal, but it's still there. Let's head up to curl, and I'm going to go back one page. And then you can also integrate that with other tools. So if I open up neovim for this package, I can hit my shortcut for searching files, and this is FZF, right? FZF is helping me find the file, so I want to open Debian rules. There you go. If I had a little bit less of zoom here, let me see if I'm able to do this. You'll see a file preview as well. So it depends. Usually you're going to get that because you're not going to be that zoomed in, but you get a file preview of the file. And if I hit enter, I get into that file on Vim, neovim, by the way. I can also do a search throughout the whole project, so there is a shortcut for that. And this is using riprep again, so it is faster. I can search on bigger projects. And I don't know, what should I search for? Embed TLS, maybe? Do we have any hits? Yeah, so we have, then it shows me all of the files where this is mentioned. These are all upstream files, right? Config. Let me find some source file here. Yeah, this one, okay. I hit enter, and I'm inside the file. That's it. That's what I wanted to show. There are plenty of other tools that you can use with that. And I wish I'm able to try to help making these things the default for Debian eventually. At least the ones that are not too depending on personal taste, like maybe the input RC options for auto-completion. We should have 2 minutes for questions. If you want to just mention of a tool that you're aware of that follows a similar approach, feel free to do so as well. Thank you.
Hello, Samuel.
Hello,
Thank you for the presentation. When you log into remote server and you're used to all this setup, you don't have all these applications installed there. Have you thought about how you can export this easily into remote setup?
Yeah. I usually don't have to connect to random servers as part of my job. I do a lot of development work in a development server, but then I install this in there. So I have my tmux session running. I SSH into the machine, and I run it from that. You can have some types of integration to open up for example, file contents of your server on tmux, but I don't do that. But it should be possible. It's just that I don't have the use case myself.
This is thematically similar. I know that lots of people have tricks for editing files that are on remote machines, maybe over SSH or over various mounts. There's been some that have been built into Vim and Emacs for many years. I'm wondering if you have any tricks that you happen to use if you're editing a file on a remote server. Do you just SSH into that server, or do you have a trick where you're using your local editor and using some kind of remote patch?
I SSH into the server. I usually don't have the use case where I need to do that.
Okay, so first of all, I'm actually going to answer this question. You can use SSHFS to remote mount any server.
Is that to what, sorry?
You can use SSHFS to remote mount, the remote
yes.
server, and then
yes.
you can use all your local tricks in the remote thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for the suggestion, yeah.
I think you should use eShelf.
So that is a good question, excellent question. I decided to give up on Z-Shell because of the work required to set it up, and it was pulling too many things at the same time, so I just stuck with Bash. And it turns out Bash can be really nice if you have the right settings.
Yeah, so we all have our preferences, and I'm not going to say you're wrong. So the one critical thing Z-Shell gives you that a lot of people are not aware of, I don't know if you are, it has extremely fancy globbing that lets you, as part of both interactive use and in scripts, you can trivially do things like operate on the last modified file, or show me all the files modified within the last 5 minutes, or whatever.
Right.
And there's actually very rich syntax. Like there's a million things you can do, and most of it you don't need to remember because the tab completion is really, really nice, and it will tell you exactly the syntax for various things, and it's extremely powerful. So just think about it.
Yeah. Thank you. Gunnar has one.
Hi, just wondering about the interaction. I didn't yet test it, but maybe you know. I prefer to use ignore dupes as part of my bash history settings, so it doesn't record many instances of the same command, which I do quite often. So if I put timestamps on each history line, I guess that would kill ignore dupes. Have you played with that? Or
no, what is the solution? Is GNOME something?
No, ignore dupes. If you set...
Sorry, yes.
If you set RAM, export hist control equals ignore dupes.
Yes. I should have mentioned that. I do use that, yes. And there's also append only, which I forgot what is the option now, but there's one option as well that always appends the history instead of overwriting it if you have two terminals open at the same time. So I really recommend those two options, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so thanks for the presentation. I use fish, by the way. And that's fine. I will stop here.
Yeah, sorry, we're out of time, people. Thank you for coming.